Well, thank
So
you
you are.
everyone for attending. This is my name is Elizabeth Kim. I'm on the board of the Davis Vanguard, and here we have the founder this morning to introduce himself and the event that we're holding, and then we'll get right to the civil rights attorneys who were gracious enough to attend this press conference this morning. Thank you very much, David.
Good morning. I'm David Greenwald. I'm the founder and director of the Davis Vanguard. We started out as a small community-based nonprofit news site, but we're now covering courts really across the state, and we're covering criminal justice issues across the country. So coming up on Thursday is the big day of giving, which is the Sacramento Regional fundraising for nonprofits. And we decided this year to do something a little different. In addition to simply trying to raise money, we're actually having an event. And so we invited LA District Attorney George Gascon, who used to be the district attorney in San Francisco, of course, and then Alameda County Public Defender Brendon Woods. And at the time, we decided to have the discussion focus around policing and race. And believe it or not, at that point, we knew that that was going to kind of be a burning issue because the Derek Chauvin trial, but we didn't know how big an issue it was going to end up becoming because it was the decision was actually made pre-Dante Wright and all the other cases, including Mario Gonzalez, which has come up in Alameda County. Today we've asked a couple of very prominent civil rights attorneys to come on and kind of share their experience and their thoughts on the state of policing and race in America. We have Keith Staten, who's an attorney based in Sacramento. We have Mark Merin, a longtime attorney, civil rights attorney in Sacramento. And we have Pamela Price, who is running for DA for the second time in Alameda County. She's also currently a civil rights attorney. So I'll turn it over to Liz to kind of run the show here.
Okay, thank you. Again, so I wanted to thank all our amazing prominent attorneys here in our region to give us an update or provide commentary on your thoughts on the importance of civic engagement in such an event where you have the opportunity to engage with policymakers like Gascon and Woods on how we can shape our policies moving forward now that the Derek Chauvin trial has concluded. And of course, we're in the appeals process. But what are your thoughts? Let's start with Keith, kind of on what you would like to see and what updates you might have or comments you might have on the importance of policing and race policies today.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm always glad to hear me talk about stuff like this. It's as near and dear to my heart. I can tell you now that Derek Chauvin and the trial result was it's not a time to celebrate. It was a good thing. It was a righteous thing to happen. But I think that what is going to happen is that we've got to start changing policies throughout the country at all police departments. I really believe they need a revamp on how they think, how they operate, to understand one thing, and that is that life is precious, and all lives are precious. And so if all lives are precious, then we should preserve life at all costs. And one of the things that I know that goes on and now is that it seems that our engagement with police officers, which I preach should be very small, narrow, keep it to, am I free to leave? If not, then I want my lawyer and comply completely. Keeping it to that is a way to stay alive. But we've seen individuals being shot in the back, shot laying down, shot reaching into a car, all kinds of situations. Every time I think of a different situation that may not happen, one happens and stuff. So we got to change the whole philosophy of policing, I believe. That's what we've got to do. Carve out the mental illness and the mental health issue. We got to pour funds into that and create a wing there that they go out and instead of the police, But most importantly, the policy on use of force and specifically deadly force. I don't care what kind of force you use if you are trying to apprehend, if you're trying to place a person in custody, you know, but it should never be deadly force. And that's the thing that gets confused is even if a person is running from a police officer, they are running. They are not causing any imminent or immediate danger to life. So that should never be a situation where deadly force is used. And you can think of the Oscar Grant situation where, okay, he's laying on the ground. Think of other situations, Sandra Bland pulled out of a car. You know, it seems like this failure to comply has become a crime in and of itself so large that now deadly force can be used. But we all know it's all about the perception of officers of Black people, that for some reason, they feel that we are dangerous, that just the appearance of us would makes them feel that they're nervous and they have to touch their gun or come up with their gun. And I'm even talking small warrants. If I had a warrant for a misdemeanor, there's really, and I ran from a cop, there's no reason to shoot me dead. So we've got to start thinking policies deep within the police department that say no deadly force can be used to apprehend, to hold someone, and only deadly force when there's an immediate and imminent threat of life, loss of life against the cops or a citizen. Because the one situation that came out right after the verdict was the young girl, the 16-year-old girl who was about to stab the other girl. You know, I'm as critical as can be on officers' behavior and reaction, but I have to look at that and I have to go, she was about to stab the girl. I don't have a problem with that, but they're using it in ways where people are unarmed. And if you are unarmed, I don't see a justification of shooting a person to kill a person in any situation, because we as citizens can't live like that. We can't behave like that, or else there's some severe anarchy that's going to happen. So that's how I'll jump off and throw it out there. Also throw out that people have to vote. We have to get the vote out. People don't realize if you're in county jail right now, you can vote. As long as you're not currently in prison, currently on parole, you can vote. People with felonies are sitting on juror panels now. So I can't wait for somebody to raise their hands and say, yes, I'm a felon and prospective juror, because they're probably gonna get a pass with me and stay on, because they would understand better the clients that are being tried in our courtrooms. So getting out and vote to change things. We got a big DA election coming up probably pretty soon, and AG election, maybe even sheriff. We probably got to change things on all levels. So now's the time to do it, because I think it's later than we think.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Keith.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mark, how about do you have any comments, or do you want to answer to what Keith is saying about eliminating all use of deadly force? Or what challenges?
Well, wouldn't that be lovely if we could do that? But yeah, I have a whole bunch of different thoughts. Politicians are afraid of law enforcement. That's why you see the police commission in Sacramento complaining that it's toothless. They can't even get the city council to consider its recommendations. And that's been the case forever. Instead, at the same time that we're talking about reining in the police, what do you see in terms of funding? Well, the police budget in Sacramento was just increased so they can add 50 more officers. The sheriff's budget, all that money that should have gone to COVID relief, I think it was like $186 million was directed to the sheriff's department. I mean, that's just absolutely nuts. These politicians are afraid that if they do anything to criticize or rein in the law enforcement, they themselves will be subject to replacement. So I think that police are still profiling. That's the main thing that I see. The traffic stop is a profile decision. Yes, sure, they may have a justification, a bad tail light or a failure to indicate a turn or a change of lane or something. Yes, but they pull people over knowing that they're going to find some excuse to prolong the detention, and then to run the name to find out if there's any outstanding tickets or failure to appear or warrants or anything, and then it escalates, and then it's the use of force, and then it's the use of deadly force when a person who's pulled over and stopped for no or little reason objects and wants some some explanation. Then it's out of your car, it's on the ground, and then it's a life and death situation. If they manage, if those people who are arrested manage to get to jail, the situation in our jails is treacherous. We have sued the Sacramento County Jail about 50 times, largely because of people who are seriously injured in the booking process, because they don't understand that when an officer tells you to do something in the jail, which is, quote, their house, you jump to it, you get it done, and you don't ask questions, or else you're going to be mobbed on the floor, dragged, kicked, and your bones broken. I'm telling you, this is serious. We have case after case where people who are, brought in for some minor charge end up with broken arms, dislocated shoulders, end up hospitalized from there. And that is the jail's way of maintaining what they consider to be discipline. And if you get by the booking process, you may never get out at all. We have two cases right now, the Thomas case and the Debs case. And there's another case we're going to file where people who were in jail were killed either by their cellmates because of the improper classification. They were put in with people who were murderers and swore to kill whoever was put into their cell. Well, guess what? That's what happened. In Thomas's case, he was killed by a person with whom he had he was placed that day. And likewise, in the Debs case, same day, two people transferred to one cell in the psychiatric unit. One guy just killed Mr. Debs, just a harmless individual. So the jails are running rampant. There's no politicians who will rein them in. It's up to the people to do it. I mean, we're the only ones who have a voice, and we have to throw the politicians out who are presently in there. There's almost none that I would point to that I know of in either Sacramento County or city who are really worthy of the job, who are standing up for the people. We have Katie Valenzuela, a fresh hope, I'd say, who actually is speaking truth to power. But take a look at the demonstration. So the demonstration in one of the demonstrations in Sacramento, protesting the DA's refusal to charge anybody in the Stephon Clark case, resulted in the kettling and arrest of 84 people who were just attending the demonstration. Then we have the George Floyd demonstrations in Sacramento, where the police, in a huge and totally irrational use of force, were firing ballistic weapons at a crowd in general, just to disperse the crowd. I mean, forget tear gas. What they're doing now is just randomly shooting people. So, I mean, this is absolutely outrageous. So we're making very little progress as far as I can see. We're learning more, we're hearing more, but we need to hear more faster. I mean, we have to have release of information immediately. Instead, what happens is the police, the law enforcement, takes control of the dialogue in relation to any case. So what you hear is, oh, he threatened us with a weapon. He threatened us with a weapon. Well, yeah, right. A weapon that was thrown away, well before the fatal shooting. I mean, we have this use of body pressure on the people who are on the ground, killing them. I mean, George Floyd is just one example. We've got Alejandro Sanchez down in Modesto, who was killed the same way. We just had was it Gonzalez, who was also held down and killed. And then we have these alleged excited delirium explanations for why people who are arrested die in the police car. They die in the police car because they've been asphyxiated with the pressure on their bodies. So, I am very critical of the present state of affairs. We have a case, just an example of how the court system is. It used to be our last resort. I'm not serious. I'm not that hopeful that it's going to give us that much solace in the future, particularly with our Supreme Court presently constituted. But we've got the Joseph Mann case. Joseph Mann case, you think, oh, that was settled a long time ago. It's clear that the officers tried to kill him with their cars. because he allegedly was running around in a neighborhood with something in his hand. Then when he threw a teacup or a coffee cup at an officer's car, they tried to kill him, and then they got out of their car, ran him down, pinned him against a fence, and killed him. So that case was settled immediately with no discovery done, with John Burris's office in Oakland, in a private confidential settlement that had no discovery. So no one ever knew what happened. The siblings, however, who supposedly were told that they didn't have a right, came to us, and we have litigated now for almost 3 years the right of siblings to bring an action in federal court to enforce the Constitution against officers who kill their siblings. That issue has been up before the Ninth Circuit now 3 times. We believe we're finally able to move forward to get at the facts of what happened to Joseph Mann. How did that happen that he was killed? So those are the kinds of things we're working on. I mean, obviously there are a lot of other things, but it takes the public outrage, organization, and resistance to policies, and let's throw the politicians out and start fresh. That's sort of my view.
Thank you so much, Mark. Pamela, so hearing that, we're identifying the problems and much more progress that's needed, would you tell us about what your priorities would be if elected to DA in your candidacy, and what kinds of things are on your top of the list for your agenda?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here with Mark and Keith, and to be with you all. And I want to thank you for the work that you've done, the kind of news coverage that you've provided us and given us a foundation is certainly so important to the public good and to the public conversation. And the program that you're planning to have with George and with Brendon is just an amazing contribution to the conversation. And that's where we are right now. Yes, I am running for Alameda County District Attorney to change the policies and address the kinds of inequities that my co-panelists have just outlined here. As district attorney, my #1 priority will be police accountability. No more double standard is what we have committed, that we will hold officers accountable, and we will have the kind of political courage that Mark is talking about. I am not accepting contributions from police associations, and I will not be bound by the dictates of police associations, as so many politicians are. And it's not just district attorneys who are bought and paid for by police associations. It is our elected officials. It's our mayors. It's our city council people. It's our police commissioners. We find that across the board, that kind of stranglehold that police associations have had on municipal governments and local county governments has never been challenged. In so many places, district attorneys are not challenged. Sheriffs are not challenged. And so we have county supervisors and the city of elected officials that just go along to get along, even knowing that the culture of policing as it has existed and been handed down to us in so many places is just fundamentally wrong. In Alameda County, we've been living under a criminal justice system for 40 years, from the times of Earl Warren, that has just been passed down, and there's been no accountability either for police or for prosecutors, and they have gone hand in hand. I'm a civil rights lawyer by definition, by trade, by training, by birth, basically been in the civil rights movement since 1968. And I can tell you that as a civil rights lawyer, to become the district attorney means that I've maintained my independence. And I understand that it is my responsibility to ensure that officers engage in constitutional policing. And that standard has not been set. The co-panelists are absolutely correct. The kinds of stops that we see pre-tax, it's just based on racial profiling. In Oakland, if you live in Oakland, you're 9 times more likely to be stopped by police than a white person. And if you live in Alameda County and you're Black, you're 5 times more likely to be incarcerated than a white person. So my second priority has to be to address the racial disparities. And that's going to require confronting the kinds of misconduct and the mindset that police officers have demonstrated towards Black and Brown communities. Throughout the Derek Chauvin trial, I was listening, I kept hearing a reasonable police officer, a reasonable police officer. And we know as lawyers what that means. And most people don't understand. That definition is completely warped. We have to completely redefine what is a reasonable police officer. Mark mentions the case of Mario Gonzalez. Yes, in Alameda, in the city of Alameda, the home of our new Attorney General and our state controller. This is a place where officers felt compelled to confront this gentleman. And because he would not comply immediately, or because he just wouldn't answer a question and produce his ID, they felt compelled to put him in handcuffs. That's the first step to his death. And that was a completely wrong approach to that. And that's where policing is that the expectation is that you will comply, that you will be handcuffed. And if you're not amenable to, basically a South African rule of identify yourself or else we're going to handcuff you, you can end up dead. And that's what happened here. And so we got to completely redefine what is a reasonable police officer, what is force, when is force, as Keith points out, why is force necessary every time an officer encounters someone? It's not. In Oakland, our police commission has established forbid police to do the first thing that they were doing forever, which is the first question: are you on parole or probation? Okay. That immediately is the answer to that question, gives police a green light, is a way for them to get a green light to then put their hands on someone. And that is completely unnecessary, as we have seen. And so we have to establish accountability on the street. We have to establish accountability in the courtrooms. And as a progressive district attorney, we have to expect and mandate that we're going to have different options. One of the things that I really appreciate about George Gascon's time in San Francisco is that he created the neighborhood courts program, which is not unique to San Francisco, but it's an alternative for us. We have to have alternative tools to expecting the police to take everybody into custody, not just for mental health issues, but for nonviolent issues, for disputes that don't require a badge and a gun. We have got to reduce the police footprint. And the way you do that, one way you do that, you have to also have alternatives that create safe communities and provide a safety net for people who have been the victims of some type of transgression, that we are going to hold people accountable for victimizing other people, but we're going to do it in a way that restores them to the community and that respects them as a person. The one line, and I'm closing now, the one line that I loved from the closing argument in the Derek Chauvin trial was where the prosecutor said, for police officers, it's called custody and care, not custody and I don't care. And that's what we see so often. And it's race-based, it's poverty-based, it's socioeconomic biases, and it's immunity, where we have given officers qualified immunity and said, go out there and brutalize whoever you want to, and no one is going to hold you accountable. And that's the kind of change that we have to see.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Pamela, for that, for those priorities that you've outlined, and for also illustrating the problems that we have so much work to solve. So David, I think we're going to have a separate event with these three to talk more, because I have a million questions about everything all three of you just said. But I just want to end on this final question to all three of you, and you guys can answer however you'd like in closing us out for this press conference. But what is the role of citizens to be engaged in these policy changes, and what can they do to support the changes that we absolutely need to save Black lives? Mm-hmm. Keith, you can go ahead and.
Well, Mark, Mark had mentioned about the commission here and how it's toothless. Until there's some oversight committees that actually can do something, even bring actions against officers, it's going to be up to the DA's office to do anything about it. And they're usually too interwoven to really come out and do anything. So I think we got to push our mayors, our city councils to create commissions that have teeth, that can do something, that have power. But I know that's a fine line, but it's got to be something demanded by the people in the people that we put in. So, I mean, I vote.
Vote and run, like Pamela is doing to change things from the inside out.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Mark?
Yes, of course, the ballot is the way to get change at the top. The question is, how do you get change, at the street level? And I think cell phones and observing police conduct is very important. When you turn the light of day on some of the stuff that's going on, then maybe they're a little less willing to violate rights. That could tamper it somewhat. Also, I think writing the media, writing letters, and being aware, educating yourself and changing your own attitudes, so that when you see something happening on the street, you actually step in. I think that's all positive. Keeping informed and making our elected officials responsive to us. Changing budget priorities. I like the new budget project in Sacramento, where they're looking at an alternative ways of spending our taxpayer money. But ultimately, we have to deal with issues like poverty. We have to provide housing. We have to really reorient society. And I'm hopeful that the young people coming up will see that as their mission, because we older folks have failed. So, go youth.
Go youth, absolutely. Thank you. Pamela?
Yeah, fortunately, and in my beloved Oakland, citizens did come together to establish an independent police commission, and it passed. Measure LL passed here through the organizing of community groups and individuals, and everybody got involved to say we need a police commission that is going to try to start reining in our Oakland Police Department. And Measure LL passed with 82% of the vote. And then thereafter, the Coalition Police Accountability, of which I'm a member, has led the fight to strengthen the police commission. And we did that again in November. We passed Measure S1, which was to once again strengthen the police commission. And it has been a fight to empower this citizen-led commission to be able to hold police accountable and to get past the resistance of elected officials like our mayor and our city manager. The city is constantly, as they experience in Sacramento, they're constantly undermining the progress that the people have demanded by having an independent police commission. But the battle is not over. And so in every town and every county, we've got to organize people to come together to pass legislation, ordinances to insist to establish independent police commissions. And that it's not going to be done once, it's got to be done multiple times, and you got to keep pushing the envelope because our elected officials have been bought and paid for. And again, as Mark points out, it's a question of budgets. Budgets are a statement of priorities. Unfortunately, people in Oakland have been very involved in the budget process, and we've got to be able to look at why is the police department over 50% of the budget in most towns and cities? That's just crazy. And we've got to basically take back that money and put it into services and programs that are really going to keep us safe and protect our communities.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So there you have it for our audience. We've got some big policies that need changing and all of the steps that were outlined here today by our three civil rights giants. But the first step that you can make is getting informed, like Mark said, being educated and tuning into honest journalism, like what Davis Vanguard provides. And a big step is to continue these conversations and contribute on days like the big day of giving. David, do you want to have any final comments before we close out our press conference today?
Yeah, I think listening to the folks from Sacramento and the folks from Oakland, and we have Gascon coming from LA, and they're dealing with a lot of the same issues in policing, and also they have similar concerns about the sheriff down there. I know in my county, Yolo County, we have concerns about policing. We've had similar discussions. We have concerns about the sheriff and the district attorney. So, it really is a global thing, even though, each community is having to deal with this kind of on their own. But as we have these conversations, I think people can learn from other communities and see what other communities are doing in order to figure out the best way forward. And that's why we're trying to have these discussions, and we're going to continue this discussion Thursday night at 7 p.m. on Zoom. You can sign up on davisvanguard.org to get your tickets and support the Vanguard, and also engage in a very important conversation.
Yes. Thank you so much to all of our panelists and for the media for being here. Thank you, David. Thank you, Cecilia. And we look forward to seeing you on Thursday, May 6th at 7 p.m. via Zoom, our virtual event on the big day of giving. Thank you, everybody.